Do 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 dun 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 dun. Astrology is now. Hello, 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 my beautiful brothers and sisters, beautiful soul beings. Welcome to episode 2 of Astrology is Now. The Astrology is Now podcast, episode 2. Welcome. It is Thursday. It is Thor's Day, which means that it is time for another podcast. And I was probably going to make this later in the day, but then I looked at the transits and I'm like, oh crap. Look at that. Mercury, the planet of the mind and communication, is on top of my natal sun right now. My natal sun is at 24 degrees of Scorpio and Mercury is right there. So I was like, I kind of have to make it right now. I just spent the last, you know, 20 minutes or so writing some poetry and stuff. I'll probably share a couple of those with you all today. But I just wanted to hop on here and just spread some good vibes. And of course, a very happy birthday to all of my fellow Scorpios out there. I'm not going to get mine for, about 3 weeks or so, my solar return. But to those of you that have gotten their solar return already, a very happy Phoenix Rising day for you all. It's Scorpio season. Oh man, I am excited. I'm always excited for Scorpio season. This is the time where things get deep, dark, and intense. But there's a beautiful light within that deep, dark intensity. And Scorpio, we're here to help those along the way to deal with these psychological energies. Scorpio season is certainly a very psychological time. I'm sure you can already feel it. And I certainly have felt a shift within the past couple of days for me. As some of you may already know, I mentioned on the last podcast, but I did get married on Sunday. It's awesome. I love her. I will always love her no matter what happens, but I certainly have the intention to continue this forward. And it's interesting. We got married towards the tail end of Libra season, which Libra season is, of course, about partnerships and relationships, and it can be about marriage as well. But admittedly, the couple of days following it, I kind of was in like this weird energy, or almost sort of like I expected more. I don't know. I expected the butterflies from that day to kind of continue, but I think what's the difference with our experience, me and my wife, I can say that now, is that we've been with each other for a while and we've been living with each other for a while. So a lot of the things that come with marriage, we've kind of have already done, but with the exception, of course, of having kids and stuff. But we've already done a lot of that stuff. So I was wondering to myself those couple of days, did we kind of go too fast? Did we take the wind out of our sails too early? Did we experience what we were supposed to experience? And I think what's interesting with marriage is that, what the second house to Libra is Scorpio, and the second house is about, what we treasure in life. And Libra does treasure those deep connections. It does treasure being able to kind of get closer to someone in a deeper sense, in a more psychological sense, in a more intimate sense. And I've realized that, like, just because we have been living with each other for a while now, doesn't mean that the intimacy is gone. It doesn't mean that we don't have more to learn from each other. And I think what's even more interesting about our relationship, is that we have quite a bit of squaring energy. My sun squares her sun in Aquarius. Our Mercury square each other. Mine's in Sagittarius. Hers is in Pisces. And it's kind of interesting when you get this squaring energy. A lot of people shy away from it, especially when it comes to relationships, because it presents this sort of challenge and this sort of obstacle. But it is through these challenges and through these obstacles that we grow. So just because, you may see squares in your chart, or you see oppositions, or maybe a current transiting planet is squaring or opposing one of your energies, or even quincunxing it, does not mean that it's an indication of something's wrong or something bad is going to happen. It's an indication of growth. And a lot of times what happens with the harmonious aspects, such as, trines and sextiles, is that sometimes we take those energies for granted. And it is us taking those energies for granted and not realizing the beautiful opportunities afforded to us. That's where the problems with those arise. So, right now we are moving from this energy of all of this energy in Libra, which has been squaring the Capricorn and Cancer energies, and now they are starting to move into Scorpio. Now, of course, we do still have Mars at 13 degrees on this day in Libra, and it's going to be squaring Saturn soon, and it has already squared the nodes. So we still have that energy, and we still have the squaring energy to Pluto as well. So, this energy is not per se done, but we're now shifting into this area where we are looking for this deeper quality of life. We're looking for these deeper treasures, because if you think about it, Scorpio and Taurus, they oppose each other. They're two sides of the same coin. And Taurus, like I said, it's about what we treasure in life, and Scorpio very much so the same thing, but it's looking beyond the physical. It's looking beyond the tangible that Taurus looks at. Not that Taurus can't look beyond the tangible, but they are more preoccupied with the physical and the tangible, whereas Scorpio is more concerned with these deeper waters, these deeper psychological waters, these deeper intense waters, these deeper currents and vents. You gotta think that Mars, wants to get to Scorpio as soon as it can, but it has to finish up in Libra, and it doesn't like to be in Libra, right? It'd rather be in Aries, but it also co-rules Scorpio. So by the time that Mars comes into Scorpio, you're going to feel this sort of eruption, but it's going to be muted by all the water. I'm getting this image of underwater volcanic vents that when they begin to spew out into the sea, it creates all of this smoke and this steam. But this is how islands are created, and that's how you get the Taurus energy. This is how islands are created. This is how land is created. It erupts from the bottom of the ocean, and there has to be an intense passion and fire and creative force for this fire and this magma and this lava to continue to push against the pressure of Scorpio, so it can come out and it can become an island, so it can see the sun, so it can get more of that direct sunlight. But it is something that erupts from the core of the earth. It's something that erupts from the core of our being. So right now we are all kind of drifting in these waters right now, almost sort of submerged. I would think drifting is more of like a Neptunian Pisces energy, kind of drifting out in the open ocean. Whereas Scorpio, you're like kind of like on the bottom of the ocean, like a shrimp or a lobster or a crab. But what's interesting about this is that even though in those dark depths of the ocean, you still have creatures that are able to manifest and produce their own light. So this is something that we are all learning right now, how to create and manifest our own light in a seemingly dark and desolate place where you don't really know what's out there. It's very much so unknown. In Scorpio, in many ways, it does kind of rule the unknown, because Scorpio does rule over this whole energy and elements of death. And that's why this time is so weird. That's why we flirt with this, with our holidays. We flirt with it with Halloween. And then an even deeper, more ancestral idea of it is the whole Day of the Dead practices that occur in the Latin American countries where they acknowledge and appreciate those who have passed on. And they create these altars for people. And I believe that that's a beautiful thing. Anytime you can create an altar for someone, it's like you're still acknowledging their presence, their energy, and their being, and it doesn't ever truly die. So I think the Scorpio season right now, of course, we have the sun here, we have Venus, we have Mercury. By the time that Mars reaches here, though, and I can just go ahead and look at the chart just right quick, but by the time that Mars even reaches Scorpio, Venus will actually be in Sagittarius. And Venus, like I said, it does rule Taurus, right? Or at least co-rules Taurus. I believe that the ruler of Taurus is actually the Earth. But Venus will be in Sagittarius at 21 degrees. So it's actually about having this visionary quality about what we treasure and seeing what is true. So by the time that Mars gets here, the sun's going to be at 26 degrees of Scorpio. And Mercury, of course, is going to be in its retrograde state at that point. Interesting enough, I believe that Mercury is going to go direct pretty much the day after Mars comes into Scorpio. So that's kind of an interesting thing, right? Right now we are experiencing a shift, and last night, over the past couple of nights, I've had some pretty intense dreams. The first dream was where essentially it was kind of funny because I think it was spurred by me listening to like the Joe Rogan podcast like before going to sleep, or I think I fell asleep actually watching it. But I like saw myself rising into the sky, and then I felt. I think it was kind of weird. It was kind of like Joe Rogan who was doing it to me. Or maybe just a representation of him, but I felt this being reach into my heart and was like pulling stuff out of me, and I was screaming in the dream. And then I woke up. It was weird, but what happened, I feel, was that being who was kind of taking the image of Joe Rogan in this particular instance. It sounds crazy. It sounds very weird and maybe even delusional, but it was almost like that being extracted something from me that needed to be let go of. And the first word that came to mind was guilt. The first word that came to my mind was guilt. And I do feel that a lot of people probably experience this, where it's harder for people to forgive themselves than other people. It's harder for people to forgive themselves than other people. And then we suffer from this guilt of, oh, I should have did that, or oh, I shouldn't have done that. And that dream I had just a couple of nights ago, I felt this extreme weight of guilt get pulled out of me and got extracted out of me. And ironically, the rest of the day, which was yesterday, after waking up from that dream, I had a rather unproductive day until about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I don't know what it was exactly. It almost kind of like exhausted me, that dream. But then last night I had this interesting dream where I came into this information and knowledge that the pendulum is swinging back the other way, and that we are going back to our natural state. And I got this feeling that we're going back to the mother. And I found that interesting because a lot of times I do feel like where Cancer is the mother and Pisces is like the water and the fluids, Scorpio is like the womb itself. And right now, what's happening is that our spirit is in the womb. Our spirit is in the womb. And in the womb, we feel safe and protected, but we are still influenced by the outside world. So, that's why, when, you have pregnant women, they have to be cautious about, what they eat and what substances they take in, because it can still affect that baby, that being that's being formed within their bodies. So I think what happens with Scorpio is that we get this almost false sense of security because we feel protected, but then there's still these outside influences. This is why Scorpio's fixed water, because it's like we have to remain steadfast in our trust that no matter what happens after this experience that we're going through, that we'll be okay and we'll be able to make it through. So right now, there is a shift. There is a major shift. And I think, like I said, with that dreams of we're going back to the mother, we are in the womb of the mother right now. And we are returning back to this more natural state. And this can be scary for a lot of people because Scorpio, being a fixed water sign, seems to really, it doesn't seem to care about the middle ground, which is honestly a lie. You know, a lot of times people like to think that Scorpio is so black and white and hot and cold, but that's a lie. The fact of the matter remains that Scorpio is still very much so concerned about that middle ground, that ambiguity, but it does everything it can to mitigate that ambiguity because then it causes all kinds of weird psychological thought patterns and wonderings like, oh crap, you get so concerned about the unknown. You know, you get so concerned about the unknown. So you do whatever you can to mitigate the anxiety of the unknown. And it's like if, and this may be kind of an interesting thing that I'm about to say, and it almost sounds a little matter of factly, but if death was really the end goal, Scorpio would be the last sign of the zodiac. But it's not. There's 4 more signs after Scorpio. So even in this fact alone, it shows that there is life after death. So right now, you know, we are going to be experiencing deaths. We're going to be experiencing transformations. And there's going to be this wonder and anxiety of like, oh shit, is this it? Is that all that's going to happen now? Am I done? Like, but no, there's 4 more signs after Scorpio. There is life after death. And it can be challenging for a lot of people. This is why Scorpio is so mysterious and unknown. This is why Scorpio rules the occult. But occult means hidden. It doesn't mean bad. It means hidden. Excuse me. I'm in a good mood today, guys. I really am. I don't know if because it's Scorpio season, and now everyone's starting to feel the way that I feel, or see the world the way that I see it. And it's one thing too being like a late degree Scorpio because I feel like it can be so intense for me with my emotions and all this sort of stuff, but there's still this weird peace and calm that comes from being in the womb, where it's like, you know, there is this sense of protection, and there's almost this sense of like when we're in the womb, you know, we don't really know when we're going to be born. You know, I don't know if a baby while it's in the womb knows when it's going to be born. Now, they get ready, of course. And I don't know if this is like an automatic response, but, and like how babies know when it's time to come. But it's like, especially in those middle months, we don't really know. We're still forming and stuff like that. But we respond to the outside world. We're still responding to those energies. So it's like, this is going to be a moment where we have to allow ourselves to transform at the pace that we're transforming and at that time. I mean, you know, this is not really a time to really rush it. Scorpio can be a very ambitious time, though. A lot of people, you know, Scorpios, especially earlier degree Scorpios, are very much so ambitious. But what happens when you get into those later degrees? there's a sense of patience that has to come over you because you know you're about to push through and be born. And then you go into that Sagittarius energy, which is all about adventure. It's full of life. It's about, really moving forward, taking your aim, taking your shot. And it's like, of course, after you're born, you don't really want to be kind of like nailed down or locked down into any particular thing. This is why it's hard to even lock down Sagittarius in a relationship. It's like they want to explore, they want to see things, they want to do things, they want to see the world. They're the travelers. They are the backpackers of the zodiac. They are the nomads of the zodiac. But then, of course, there is this thing that happens where there are certain things, obviously, that we carry with us from the Scorpio season. These genes, because, Scorpio being a water sign, water carries memory. So we're born with certain genes and attributes and stuff like that. And this can bring about a bit of predeterminism into the life after Scorpio season. But this is why you get that Sag energy, because then you get the freedom of that expression and the mutability of fire, the freedom of creativity, the freedom of experience, and how, choice is a really big deal. Choice is a really big deal for Sagittarius. Sagittarius doesn't want to just have a few choices. They want to have it be open. They want to know that there's a lot more. So it's like, what's beautiful about this is that by the time that Mars comes into Scorpio, Venus will be joining Jupiter in Sagittarius. Now, albeit Jupiter in Sagittarius, where it's at home at, it's going to be coming towards the end of Sagittarius by the time that Mars reaches this spot. But Venus will still be here. So it's about valuing the adventure, valuing what we choose, valuing, it's like, I chose what I chose. And yes, there can still be these sort of temptations. But I think what's awesome about this too is the fact that when Mercury does go through its retrograde in Scorpio, and by the time that Mars reaches Scorpio and Mercury comes out of retrograde literally the next day, we're not really going to be acting on desires that want to take our attention away from what we really value. Because by that time, Mercury has already gone over what it needs to gone over mentally. And it's going to be coming forward. Yes, it needs to go through its shadow period, but now we're going to be communicating our passions. Now we're going to be communicating these deeper desires and this deeper intimacy with life, And we're going to see, like, truly, the beliefs that we value and how important that is to us. So you're going to experience over the next 30 days, this interesting energy of, what do you truly hold as sacred? But there's also going to be temptations to deviate from that. And it's okay, because some things that you have kept as sacred once may not be as close to you as you thought. You'll probably figure that out with the Mercury retrograde. But then a lot of the things that, you have kept as sacred, but then something's like, oh, yo, try this. I'm over here. And you're going to be wondering if you should make that jump. You're going to be wondering if you should make that call, But I caution you just to say that, like, if it's not, like, if you're not absolutely 100% certain, like, I wouldn't really make any super huge decisions, before November 20th, before Mars gets there, or before, when Mercury finally goes direct, because we're going to get this Mercury retrograde on Halloween. So for a great deal, like for the first 2/3 of November, we're not really going to know what to do. We're really not going to know what to do. And it wouldn't be advantageous to really make any huge life-altering decisions during this time. It really wouldn't be. I mean, you can do it, of course. You're free to do whatever the hell you want to, obviously. And that's another thing I want to talk about, actually, hell. But we'll get there. You're free to do whatever you want, but just know that you're going to start to question some things, go over some things, go over your beliefs, and intimacy and what it truly means and what you really deeply value beyond the physical representation of that thing. What is it that really excites you? What is it that really turns you on and attracts you? What is it that arouses you? You know, you're going to find some things where you've been questioning your arousal for it, and then by the time that Mars comes into Scorpio and Mercury is going direct, you can be like, oh, yeah, that's why it arouses me. And then it's going to be sort of like this thing where it's like you're going to ask yourselves, like, wait, why am I feeling these things that have passed? Why do I feel like I want to reopen those doors again? Why do I still have feelings for that person when I'm with someone else? Why do I still miss that job when I'm in a job that I'm happy in? But this is water. Water carries memory, and it ebbs and flows. It's a tide. Sometimes the tide is close, sometimes the tide is far out. Sometimes the water is there, then it evaporates, then it comes down as rain, and then you're reminded of those memories. But that water also is carrying with it so much more than just that previous memory, but all the experiences that have followed that moment, those decisions. And then when it comes down, it can be a gentle rain or it could be a downpour that we want to hide it from, you know? But just because we have those feelings, just because we have those thoughts, just because we have those I'm trying to find the right word for it. Wait, for come to me. It's not desires. It's not desires. I can't think of it right now, man. That's crazy. I can't even think about the word I'm trying to think of. Let me hit my vape and see if that helps me help jog my memory. Urges? That's the closest word to it. Just because we get the urges or we feel egged on to open up certain doors that have closed doesn't necessarily mean that we have to open those doors again. Because people have moved on, jobs have moved on, situations have moved on, and it's okay to still feel love for those people, for that job, for those situations. Just because you think about it doesn't mean that you have to act on it. This is why I really feel like we really shouldn't be taking too much like major life altering actions from Halloween to about November 21st. We really shouldn't, because like I said, there's going to be a lot of urges to do something, to have an experience, you know, or maybe to reopen up doors to go. I would not recommend I would not recommend from Halloween to November 20th to about 21st to get back with exes. I would not recommend it. Afterwards, if you really feel like you want to open that door again, then I would say it would be more advantageous. I would not recommend going back to exes during this time. I really would not recommend it. I would even recommend doing it right now before Halloween, because you're going to get that Mercury retrograde. You want to wait until after Mercury goes direct. You want to wait until after Mars goes into Scorpio, because then you're going to know what beliefs about that experience or that person you truly value. You're going to know then. It's a beautiful day outside, guys. The sun is shining. I'm going to go out there and take in some sun here in a bit. But I definitely wanted to make sure that I got on here and did this podcast now rather than later. Because as I said, Mercury is on top of my sun. And, you know, I really feel like this is my spirit really communicating and coming through in a rather powerful way. And I'm really I'm super excited for the future. I'm super excited to see what happens. I'm super excited to see how things unfold. And the pendulum is swinging back the other way. It is swinging back the other way. I feel like we've kind of gone to like this crazy extreme in our society. and now it is starting to swing back the other way. I don't know if it's like I said, I felt a shift. I don't know if it probably was the whole sun moving into Scorpio thing. But I think there was something else that happened within the collective. Maybe you felt this. Maybe you can attest to this. Comment down below your experiences just over the past 24 to 48 hours. Have you felt anything that has been extracted from you? Have you felt there is this shifting of the tide? Have you felt a difference, even in those subtle ways? Have you felt like something has shifted and altered and changed within you? Because I do feel that way. It's hard to really put my finger on it. It's hard to really put words to it because I don't think words do it justice. I do the best I can with this podcast and of course through my poetry. I feel like poetry is the closest way I can get to it. Speaking of poetry, I'm going to read the poems that I wrote this morning. I'm going to share those with you all right now. And these poems are going to go into my next poetry book, which I'm not sure when exactly I'm going to publish it. I was probably going to publish it in the month of November, but I've been lazy, admittedly, and I still have to write them all on the computer, gather them all, because right now they're just in my notebook, but I have to gather them all, format them, come up with some art that I want to put on the cover and possibly in the pages of the book and everything. But I wanted to get to a certain amount, and I'm still short about 8 poems of the amount that I want to get in there, because I want it to be about double of the last one that I did. So, but I want to read to you all. I'm going to read to you all these poems. But also what I want to read to you all, because this is the astrology is now. We're talking a lot about the Scorpio season and the whole when Mars reaches Scorpio. But I want to read to you all the degree that Mars is currently at. And this is going to be from this wonderful resource. It's called Inside Degrees, Developing Your Soul Biography Using the Chandra Symbols, and this was made by Elias Lonsdale. Now, I myself, I want to create my own version of this. Essentially what he does is that he takes every single degree in the zodiac and he gives them like a little bit of like a title, and then he expands upon it in like a paragraph. It's very, the way it's written, it's very magical, mystical, and it does make you think. And each one, it's like each degree tells a story. Like it has like an exposition, it has like this inciting moment, it climbs, there's conflict, but then it climaxes and there's a resolution, and then you kind of get to like this deeper understanding of it. But right now I want to read where Mars is currently at. It is at 13 degrees of Libra. So let's read 13 degrees of Libra in this book. Let me get to it real fast. Okay, Libra, 13 degrees. This is where Mars is at right now. Men and women in white towels in a steam bath, talking and sweating profusely. When you are personally ill, disattuned, all broken up, you can find a kind of healing and transformation by exposing yourself to shared experiences that give you a boost and let you release what has gotten you to this point. Connecting to your soul tribe, essentially. You will find others in similar places to your own. Rituals and styles of change, of opening, of becoming somebody new can become a way of life in themselves. Being thrust into collective cycles, talking on collective karmas, immersing yourself in what is going on with everybody, feeling it all, sensing what it is like to be human, to be wounded, to be searching, alive to the multiple chemistries along an open-ended pathway. Yet, you also tend to loop back, to grow attached to the way it seems, and to be naive to what you really are doing after all. Experiences and processes must be springboards into really becoming free, and perhaps also by rooting into place where love is born, out of whose source you can give so abundantly and be sustained in the universal flow. As one who kept at it until all of the semblances gave way to the adventure authentically embraced. This is what we're all doing right now. We are all connecting with each other. We have been wounded, we have been hurt, but we are human. And the human experience is messy. It's not a coloring book where you color in the lines. There aren't even any lines. We're just throwing paint onto a canvas. And we're sharing what we have thrown onto this canvas with other people. And we are wanting to connect with other people that share similarities with us. That's where we are right now as a collective. And this is a rather intense energy too, because it's like we're getting together and we're like, oh crap, so you're messy too, you're messy too, you're messy too. How are we going to clean up this mess if we're all messy? I don't think we're necessarily meant to quote unquote clean up the mess. We are meant to experience the messiness of our life as authentically as possible. So I just thought that's interesting. I didn't even know that was going. I hadn't read it before reading it to you all here, so I think that's really cool. I'm gonna read some of my poetry to you guys. Hope you don't mind. Right now, these poems don't have titles. Some of them have tentative titles I just thought about on the fly. But here's this one poem this is the first poem that I wrote. Slow it down as to allow but a sprinkle of water to creep through the jagged walls. Bring it back to a calmness rivaling the inner knowing of a crackling fire under the stars. Feel it within, the serenity of anxiety lifting as it leaves behind the sweeping clarity of the now. The whisper beckons as the breath slows your heartbeat and you become one. As you hold it steady, pull back your intention and release it into the unknown, trusting that you'll still hit the target. Let's just let that sit in for a moment. Here's the second poem that I wrote this morning. The struggles of claiming defeat prior to the rise of our star is a sweeping disease plaguing millions in our world today. So much so that I have fallen ill to these pitfalls myself. Hello, I can't even read my own freaking handwriting. Oh, that's what I meant to say. I'm going to start from the beginning, now that I can read my handwriting. The struggles of claiming defeat prior to the rise of our star is a sweeping disease plaguing millions in our world today. So much so that I have fallen ill to these pitfalls myself. Along this journey, awash in colors and sounds, they appear not to align with what the spirit knows to be true. Monotony fails only when joy eludes us in those waking moments as the day kicks off and few realities excite our souls. Post-traumatic stress disorder, from the inner fighting of a presence that lacks any sustenance for our soul, is a real thing no matter how much we see it. So we continue to move on, unaware, unconscious, bewildered in the fact that it came to this, and there is nothing we can do. And yet, Spirit has a comical way of revealing itself in a most miraculous way, the signs that will lead us to a more fulfilled space. For within this space, monotony takes the form of passion and dedication, to dance in the awash of colors and sounds that appear so abstract and actualize the beauty of this painting. I think you're supposed to like snap after poetry or something like that. Here's the next one. Where others see concepts, I see power. Where others detect maybes, I detect absolutes. Where others see barren, I see abundance. Where others feel darkness, I carry the lantern. And this quality is not privy to eye, for there is such an ability in us all to see what is not readily apparent. The image has been outlined for us to simply color in, but I rebel not by coloring outside of the lines, as this is revealed as an elementary revolution. Deeper than that, I decorate my own, I concoct my own, feel my own, know my own way. which cannot be broken down and simplified into a closed image of what I am to be, but it's something I came up with on the fly. For you cannot rush art. And if they ask me, how will it look? I say to them, my process is not an equation. It is not a science. It is not a page in a coloring book. It is a creation, a recreation more so, of a power that simply cannot be denied. Here's the last poem that I wrote this morning. Revolutions are power generators, and the manifestations of intent. This ebb and flow is a sacred dance that we seem to have forgotten about, as reflected by our insatiable societies. But the boat can't rock that way, but the tides can't flow that way. There must be a way to control this dance, get it down to a science, but this is not a science. For even in those calculations, every pendulum must swing back. And golly, man, my handwriting is so trash when I'm doing this. I'm going to start over again. Revolutions are power generators, of manifestations of intent. This ebb and flow is a sacred dance that we seem to have forgotten about, as reflected by our insatiable societies. But the boat can't rock that way. But the tides can't flow that way. There must be a way to control this dance, get it down to a science. But this is not a science, for even in those calculations, every pendulum must swing back. And, golly, what did I say right here? What is that word? Okay, and swinging back it is right now, as I'm sure you can feel, as the tides come closer together to propel, as the stars come closer together to propel each other into the recesses of space. Those ideas need the proper motivation to continue forth into an otherwise unknown. Yet in modern era, there is a desire to never fall short, to never go back, to never feel less than, to never lose, to always profit. And yet I find it hilarious, the false prophets of today pale in comparison to the prophet of our soul, that knows the time is coming, when the sun will rise in the west, and a new day emerges, which will frighten a many, because it has always been this way. But the way I see it, it is time to return to Mother, and to know that it is okay for the boat to move that way, and for the tides to recede and come, as that is as natural as the cycles and transformation itself. Damn, that was a terrible reading. But I hope that you got the message, because I'm not going to read it back. Maybe in another podcast I'll read it back. But that's just kind of how I've been feeling today. We live in a society which is so dogmatically structured upon infinite growth and infinite moving forward and infinite profits. But there is another prophet, and my wife is calling me, so I'm going to have to cut this short here in a bit. Actually, let me see if I can answer it. Hold on. Aha! I missed it! I hope that wasn't the first time she called. No, that was the first time she called me. I was hoping that she didn't call me more than that. So, here we go. Oh, she's calling me on here now. Interesting. Hello? No, yeah, I barely missed it. I'm actually recording right now. I'm recording the podcast. No, it's okay. It's okay. I'm not gonna edit this out either. Huh? Nope. How's work been so far? Leo's meowing outside the door now. He's gonna meow in the video though. Yeah, that's true. I actually have meditation music on in the background. I don't know if anyone can hear it, but I have the door closed. But yeah. Can I give you a call back in a bit? How long are you going to be on your break for? All right, cool. I'll call you back. Love you too. Mwah. Yeah, I'm not going to edit that out. Most people will probably be like, oh no, I got to edit that out. I'm like, nah, I'm going to keep it in there. Why not? But yeah, we're so focused on growing perpetually in one direction, but that's not the way it goes. There's cycles, there are orbits. That's okay. There's an ebb and flow to everything. Um, Even though you guys won't be able to see it, I am going to draw a card real fast. I'm going to draw a card from the Answer is Simple Oracle deck real quick. I know you guys won't be able to see it, but trust. I mean, you guys can hear me shuffling, right? You guys can hear that shuffle, right? And you guys have seen me on this channel draw from this deck too, so. But I just wanted to draw a card from here real quick, and then I'll let you guys go about your day. I hope that you all have enjoyed this so far. We definitely talked a little bit more about astrology in this particular episode as compared to the first episode, but I am definitely having fun doing this, and I hope that you guys have fun listening. But let's just go ahead and draw a card and see what we got going on. Okay, so I counted 13 from the front of the deck because 13 degrees is where Mars is at right now. And wow, I actually drew this card earlier. I drew this. You know what's crazy about this? Okay, you guys won't be able to see it, so you might not necessarily believe me, whatever. But I drew this card earlier for one of the poems that I wrote because I wanted to kind of like, it's like, all right, because most of the poems I write just off the top, but then sometimes I like to draw a card and like write about that card. And this card that I drew called Create, it shows a lady who's in a garden and she's trimming some hedges into the form of swans. And this is the card I drew earlier. What's even funnier is that the number on the card is 24, and that's where Mercury is right now. It's at 24 degrees of Scorpio, and my natal sun is 24 degrees of Scorpio, so it kind of just comes all back full circle. But it's talking about create. In one of those poems I mentioned, I talked about the creative process, and how a lot of times, like I said, you can't rush art. So where one person sees just like a bunch of random hedges, another person sees a creation, a work of art that they can create. So, you know, people may be looking at your life, you may be looking at your own life right now, and all you see is a blank canvas, or all you see is sort of like a mess. But you can create from that space. And that mess is beauty in and of itself. But you can create from that space. And people may try and ask you about your process. They may ask you about how it's going to look in the end. But like I said, true art can't be rushed, and we're all artists. So it's like, I'm getting like this whole flashback from a scene in Toy Story 2 where the guy that stole the toys, Al, Woody had like a rip in his arm in the seam, and he had to take it to the toy doctor, and he had to fix Woody up. And the dude's like all frantic, where it's like, yo, do you know how long this is gonna take? How long it's gonna take for you to fix Woody? And the old man's like, you can't rush art. And then he flipped his little thing on, and then the screen went white, and then it went to the next scene. And that's kind of what's going on here. It's like people can be frantically asking you, what are you going to do with your life? How are you going to work this out? How's it going to look? Like they want to know like all the details before you even get started. And you got to be like that old man in Toy Story 2. You can't rush art because you have a vision, and that vision a lot of times like it comes in the moment. You're not always going to know exactly how it's going to look when you start. Even a couple of steps down the line, you have to allow for this adaptability to new inspirations that come forth as you're doing it, as you're writing, as you're painting, metaphorically, or whether you're doing it literally. So there is a beautiful creative force that we are all tapped into, and that we all can tap into, and we have to allow ourselves to not rush ourselves, to not know exactly how it's going to come out, to not know all the details. And if people are asking about the details of everything, then just tell them you can't rush art. You can't rush it. And I'm constantly becoming. You can't rush this thing, So I think that really just about does it for this podcast, and I really do hope that you appreciate it. And of course, we have to have a word from our sponsor. This podcast is sponsored today by the Moon in Virgo. The Moon in Virgo currently here at 12 degrees of Virgo, getting ready to trine over to this Capricorn energy. Trining right now, of course, the South Node in Capricorn, making that sextile over to the North Node, and beginning to trine over to Saturn as well. And as the day continues, the moon will end up coming into that sextile with Venus and getting closer to that sextile with Mercury as well. The moon in Virgo is going to have us reacting and responding to our daily reality and to our routines. And as I said in that poem earlier, in one of those poems, how a lot of people, when they wake up in the day, they don't really feel this excitement because it's monotonous. And it's like a disease that plagues us, and we're reacting and responding in a sort of robotic fashion to our day. It's like, oh, we gotta get up at the same time and do the same thing, and they don't necessarily feel like they want to do it, right? And there's a lack of passion there. There's a lack of magic there. That's the other thing about it. Pisces is a very magical energy, and it, is opposite of Virgo. But people forget about the practical magic of Virgo energy and the practical magic of having a routine or having a daily life that we really enjoy. And while it may seem monotonous because we're doing the same thing every day, we love what we're doing. We're creating. We are actualizing our spirit. We are actualizing our intent, and it causes us to jump out of bed in the morning, and it causes us to rise out of the bed in the morning with a smile on our face. So that is the message brought to you all by the moon in Virgo. Thank you, of course, to our sponsor there. And I hope that you all enjoyed this Thursday podcast of Astrology Is Now, and I trust that you all have a lovely, blessed day. And like I said, we are in the Scorpio season now. Woohoo! I'm excited for this. So beware for those stingers. Beware of your own stinger, because more than likely someone's going to sting you, and you're going to sting someone, and you're probably going to sting yourself more than you sting other people. And that's just how it goes. But you have the anti-venom. You have the anti-venom to deal with that venom. You really do. You have the serum. You have the magical juice to deal with anything that you kind of impale yourself with. And it really does come down to releasing guilt and forgiving ourselves. I really do feel that way. We're heading towards the new moon in Scorpio too. Of course, Sunday evening I'll be making a video about that in the next couple of days or so. But I hope that you all enjoyed this video. I'm having a lot of fun doing these podcasts, of course, and I hope that you are getting some type of value out of this as well. I do appreciate all the continued support. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and head out of here, and I will see you guys in the next video, in the next podcast, and of course all the other videos that I bring to the channel and stuff. And yeah, now I'm rambling. So let's go ahead and get out of here. I love you all so much. Y'all have a blessed day. And as always, my beautiful brothers and sisters, always remember to keep moving forward, to stay focused, and Yahoo! Smile often. This is the outro for the Astrology Is Now podcast, hosted by yours truly, Astro Fenixx. I appreciate you all sharing this time and space with me, and I trust that this message resonates with you And I trust that you have a beautiful rest of your day, evening, wherever you are in the world. Now go out there and be that badass spiritual being that you are and always have been and always will be. Peace!